Welcome back to another edition of Arizona Wildcats Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Hutchison, and we are inching closer to kickoff as Arizona is done with its bye week. They're well rested. They're ready to go. They're probably the healthiest they've been in a couple weeks, given the start of the season. Obviously, that's probably where you're the healthiest. And now they've done some self-evaluating and are trying to fix some issues this week, last week, and this week as they get ready for the Iowa State Cyclones on the road in Ames, Iowa, number 14 Iowa State. It's going to be a very good game. Arizona's coming in red hot, 3-0. Iowa State is sitting near the top of the Big 12 standings along with Texas Tech and BYU and others. Both teams undefeated. Both teams have played Kansas State and taken care of business in some close games there. And, you know, it's going to be a all-out grudge match, an all-out physical game. This is going to be very – I don't want to say 90s football because I think we're well past that point in terms of physicality in today's football. But it's going to we rewind the clock back to the early to mid 2000s of physicality. It's going to be a fun one to watch. You know, Iowa State, they do a lot of 14-man combinations there. A lot of tight end usage. In Arizona, their defense has been one of the better defensive units in the country, top 4 in the Big 12. They sit at number 10 nationally in terms of points per game at 8.7 points per game, giving up only 2 touchdowns this year, both of those touchdowns coming against Kansas State. But before we get to the game, I want to talk about the offense, because I had an opportunity to sit down with offense coordinator Seth Dagey, have an exclusive one-on-one interview, and just pick his brain offensively, pick his brain about schematic schemes and really how the offense is progressing from the start of the season to now and what he wants to see going into that Iowa State game. Let's do a little background on Seth Dagey. Seth Dagey comes from the air raid offense of system, playing at Texas Tech, playing underneath Mike Leach. And obviously, Sonny Dykes is a part of that as well. Arizona fans are very familiar with him, and it's well documented, his impact on Arizona football. But, you know, air raid guy, so he gets labeled as an air raid guy, rightfully or wrongfully at times. He has progressed throughout the coaching ranks, seen stints at USC, Purdue, Ole Miss, and most recently at Marshall, where he was a first-year offense coordinator, first time being an offense coordinator, and they were 20th in rushing. He helped lead the Thundering Herd to a 10-3 season due to issues in terms of players being healthy for the game. They did not play in their bowl game. They finished at 10-3. They won their conference championship. Tremendous year for the Thundering Herd. Probably very few and far in between 10-win seasons out there in West Virginia. So they've done a tremendous job there. And with Seth Dagey, they were 20th in rushing. Again, we just said that, but I want to emphasize that. He's labeled as an air raid guy, and yet Marshall was 20th in rushing. He knew how to attack teams. It was up-tempo, run attack, get it downfield, let's go. And they were a very good offensive unit, average over 25 points plus per game. That's not easy to do at a place like Marshall. And so one of the things that won him the job at Arizona, when Brett Brennan talked about offensive schemes and offensive, what you have to do offensively, Brennan was surprised and happily surprised, and that's what won him the job, that he said you need to run the football to win games. You don't hear air raid guys say that. Mike Leach isn't going to say that. Mike Leach is going to say the best running attack is a quick out. Sonny Dykes is going to say that. I mean, you see it at Texas, at TCU, they don't run the football very much. You saw it when he was at Cal. Hell, Arizona had a comeback win because they just refused to run the ball. In 2014, Arizona made a massive comeback, and it ended on the Hail Mary and led to a tremendous season for the Wildcats. They don't run the ball. But Dagey is different. And we've seen it in training camp. We've seen it, well, spring practice and training camp. This is a very balanced attack. This is going to be a very balanced offense. Yes, he is a, quote, air raid guy, but I wouldn't label him as that. When you truly look at Seth Dagey, he is closer to a Rich Rodriguez than a true air raid guy. It's a very balanced attack. It's an up-tempo. They want to get the ball up and down the field, and it's very methodical. There's a rhyme. There's a reason. There's a groove to his play calling. I love what I've seen from Seth Dagey. And just to give you the numbers in terms of balance, maybe you're like, oh, maybe they're still passing the ball more, which Honestly, I thought if you looked at the numbers, Arizona would probably be a 52% pass, 48% run. That's balance. Well, I was wrong. They're a balanced attack, in my opinion, but it's favoring the run. Arizona has run the ball 117 times this season. I'll say that number again, 117 times compared to their 85 passing attempts. That is a 58% to 42% clip. So, yes, they're balanced, but they're a run football team. And Arizona's been one of the better running teams in the country thus far this season, and it stems from their offensive line. So I asked Stagey about being balanced, and he said the key to that is making sure you're unpredictable. He wants to be unpredictable. He wants to be the offense that you're not going to have a certain guy out there and you're like, okay, he's running. Last year we saw it with Caden Luke. We're going to, go a little bit back to the Dino Babers era. Whenever Caden Luke was out there on the football field, Arizona's going to run it up the gut. Plain as day, every single time. Play didn't call. Play didn't change. Play call stayed the same. With Dagey, you don't get that. There's bootleg. There's RPOs. There's a bunch of different stuff. Motion. It's a well-balanced offensive attack. It's unpredictable, and it's going to get better with time. So let's talk about that a little bit, and that was part of our conversation. Noah Fafita. If you just look at the stats compared to last year, where Noah had 18 touchdown passes and 12 interceptions, he led the conference or tied for the conference lead in picks. He didn't have a good year. Now, he completed 61%, and so far this year he's completing 59%. And you could say, well, that's not very good. There's been a lot of drop passes. There's been a lot of penalties. There's been a lot of issues that they can fix. And Dagey talked about that, saying, he's not going to accept any penalty because he doesn't want to have that mindset, but that, a lot of it stems from conditioning. A lot of it stems from fundamentals. When you have a guy on the outside and you're still holding on, it's going to get called as a hold. So you got to be fundamentally sound and disciplined to let go there. And then just keeping up with this offensive pace, sometimes you get worn down and your fundamentals break down. You got to get better at that. But you're also seeing guys like Chuba Mae, who are developing as linemen, and Rhino Tapatoe get called for penalties because they're just not there yet. Rhino coming back from his torn ACL, almost hasn't played in a year plus. Didn't play in spring practice, didn't play in training camp. Now he's out there on the field expected to make plays. And he's going to be one of the better linemen on this unit. And then, again, Chuba Mae hasn't played freaking line since junior college, and maybe you could even go back to high school days. So he's learning and trimming his weight and getting into playing shape, and you're seeing some mistakes. That's going to happen, but it's early on. But you know what? The development of Noah Fafita, getting back to our original points, has been tremendous. Again, 59% isn't great, but I think that number is going to increase. But he has 6 touchdowns through the air and 3 through the ground and 0 turnovers. He's not turning the ball over, and he has over 700 yards passing already. He could have around 850 to 900 as some plays went his way, some calls went the way, or his receivers don't drop the passes. He could be at that 900 clip mark with a completion percentage around 63% if some things fall his way. So he's on track to have a much better season than last year. He's going to blow last year's numbers out of the water. And he's not quite at that 2023 year, but he's getting there. So you're seeing him progress. But Dagey is just so intriguing to me because he's clearly not happy right now. And not disappointed, but just not – he's not settling for what he's seen thus far on the football field. And even during the bye week, I asked him, how do you balance not overworking the guys and letting them take a few extra days and easing them into something and keeping that competitive edge? And he said, dude, you have to go hard. You have to go hard a number of the practices. You'll have one extra day off, and maybe the practices are a little bit shorter. But when you're on the field, it's go hard or go home. Because you don't want to lose that competitiveness. You don't want to lose everything you've gained in terms of development from that point, because you don't want to hit the restart button And he said, you've seen programs do it. You go in that bye week, you're feeling good. The next week, you get smacked by whoever your opponent is. They don't want that. So I see a hunger from a young offensive mind that is growing as an offense coordinator and becoming one of the better coordinators in the conference. And I see an Arizona team that isn't satisfied with what they're doing. This offense is going to be very good. Right now, they're averaging 37 points a game. That's 37th nationally, but I think, the numbers are going to even out eventually. And if you average 37 points a game, let's say they average 38 for the majority of the season, even if you went down to 36 or 35, you're going to be a top 25, top 15 offense. It's just hard. So I think they're going in the right direction. It's going to be exciting to see what they were able to install during this bye week and see, how they're going to attack Iowa State. I think it's going to be closer than what the experts think. I don't think Iowa State's highly impressive. I think they're physical, and I think they're very tough, and they know how to win ugly. And when you're on the road, that's a hard team to beat, because if you can win ugly, you're difficult to beat. So, and being on the road, that's going to be a tough environment. But I think this game is going to be a one-possession game. And, we'll see where the cards lie. We'll have a game prediction later in the week, but continue to follow us on Arizona Wildcats on SI. Check out our Twitter account at Arizona Wildcats on SI, or follow me, Troy Hutchison, at THutch1995, and we'll see you next time.